Roll call members, please.
Jennery,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Herder,
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
You've all had a chance to read the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes or make corrections?
So
So
moved.
moved.
It has been moved in second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. I'll read my statement here. The public hearing will be conducted pursuant to the board's rules of procedure as adopted on May 26, 1988. We will first hear the report of the planning director on any detailed information and observation regarding the request, if not done so in written form prior to the hearing. Next, we will take the testimony of the applicant and his or her witnesses. Upon completion of the applicant's testimony, I'll call upon members of the audience wishing to make a statement concerning the request. Persons in favor of the request shall be heard first, followed by those who oppose it. At any time during the presentation of testimony, members of the board may interrupt to ask questions or make comments on what has been said. Upon completion of all testimony, the applicant will be allowed to make a closing statement to the board. Upon completion of the applicant's closing statement, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing on the request. After the public hearing has been closed, we will then hear the recommendation, if any, of the planning director, and upon completion of all discussion, I'll entertain a motion from the members of the board regarding the disposition of the application. Each speaker addressing this board shall step forward to the podium and state their name and address before proceeding with their testimony or evidence. I would ask that you spell your last name. This board shall not be bound of strict rules of evidence, but does reserve the right to exclude evidence or testimony that it may deem irrelevant, immaterial, incompetent, or unduly repetitious. As chairman, I will rule on all questions relating to the admissibility of evidence, which may be overruled by a majority of the board. The board may grant continuances in case for good cause shown to interested party who has entered his appearance. The board may, at any time, request a continuance of a hearing for the purpose of giving further notice, taking further evidence, gathering further information, touring the proposed site, or for other such reasons the board may find sufficient. In such case, we will state the specific reasons for the continuance and set a date, time, and place when the matter will be continued. All official actions of this board will be made at public hearing by motion made, seconded, and polling of membership. If conditions are imposed, such conditions shall be included in the motion or amended hereto. Our final decision will be prepared in writing and will be part of the public record of this board. Once this board has reached a decision on a case, that decision shall be final. Section 335.18 of the Code of Iowa states, any person or persons, jointly or severally, aggravated by this decision of the Board of Adjustment under the provision of Chapter 335, or any taxpayer or any officer, department, board, or bureau of the county may present to the court a record of petition duly verified, setting forth that such decision was illegal in whole or in part, specifying the grounds of the illegality. Such petition shall be presented to the court within 30 days after the filing of the decision in the office of the board. Upon hearing that, I would ask for a motion to open up the public hearing on case CU-2006-01, Richard Fuller Properties Conditional Permit.
So moved. Second.
To be moved in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. The public hearing is open. We can start with the representative for Richard Fuller Properties. Start with first.
Good evening. My name is Tyler Gravengood, Grevengoed, from Peterson Law, address 215 South Main Street, Suite 301, Council Bluffs, Iowa 51503. I represent Richard Fuller Properties along with Scott and Robin Helm, the owners and operators of Mile Way Hall and Tavern. We've kind of gone through a long process. You're going to hear kind of what's happened in the past if you haven't already heard or you're up to date on kind of what's gone on. Scott and Robin have made multiple attempts to make this business succeed and thrive. And this is the next step in order to make sure that they can continue to operate this establishment. We've rezoned it from part agriculture and part commercial to all commercial, and with the goal of moving the sand volleyball courts away from where it's eroding on the Loess Hills. They're having to clean that up weekly to the northwest corner, away from the mile away, the bar, and the banquet hall. The intent of moving it away is twofold. They want to put up a separate bathroom and Tiki Bar type establishment so that people aren't entering the bar and dirtying the bar. They're cleaning up constantly right now between the sand coming in and out. And so the goal is to utilize the entire space so that they can, one, use the banquet hall while the sand volleyball is being played. Or if somebody rents the property, they can use the outside for their wedding venue, or if they're having a barbecue as part of it, or if their kids want to during the reception time or during a fundraiser play volleyball. The conditional uses right now restrict any usage of the outdoor property while the banquet hall is being rented. So they're not able to use the entirety of the property at the same time. If it's rented, they can't be using the outside. We're just requesting that they be able to do both at the same time. We acknowledge the recommendations of the staff to submit scaled engineering site plan for improvements in parking. They've already had the intent to put up a privacy fence to keep volleyballs from entering that easement that abuts that northwest corner, so no volleyballs will be entering that easement and interfering with use of that easement. Really, this is just allowing them to utilize their property and to continue to thrive in the community and allow people to use this as an affordable banquet hall, use the green space that they're going to seed where the current volleyball is, and let them use the beautiful Loess Hills in a different manner so that they can continue to rent the property and give an entertainment aspect with volleyball to their league that they have. So their goal is to allow for outdoor venue. They're not intending on doing concerts or anything loud or ruckus. It's for green space for photography during a wedding if they want to take it and take pictures outside. Currently, the conditional use prohibits any use of the property outside other than volleyball. So we need a little more discretion, and I think that modifying it to allow multiple uses of the property at the same time is the way to, while respect neighbors and stuff like that, still let my clients use their property to the full extent that they should be allowed to use it. We've worked with Matt Wyatt, discussed the complaints. We've addressed it with the zoning board we've addressed it with the board of supervisors extensively, and during 3 hearings, we've gone through it. We've had them out at the site. We've met with the planning and zoning department in order to listen to the complaints, although some of the complaints most of them don't relate to the ownership that Scott and Robin have their previous years, but we're trying to be respectful of those complaints and their concerns of what could happen, but haven't happened since Scott and Robin have taken over. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Chris, how many, like on the volleyball, how long is their league, or, like roughly?
So they have 2 leagues. There's a summer league, and that's how many weeks?
The whole thing altogether depends on whether we try and get started.
How about,
Sorry.
I can just call her.
Okay.
Robin would probably be better at answering that question than I would.
And how many courts?
There are 2 volleyball courts, and the intent is to move both of those volleyball courts to the northwest corner.
Is alcohol served out in the volleyball courts?
There's an exterior access to the bar, and you can, in that fenced-in area, consume alcohol. Their license allows the consumption of alcohol anywhere on the property.
What is the current parking situation?
The current parking
I mean, I can see
situation.
it, but in terms of stalls or different cars.
They've had over 300 people there for the Burbridge fundraiser. That one did back up onto the street. We've addressed parking so that they've ordered signs so that the easement, which both parties, the Waters and Richard Fuller property, are entitled to use that easement. But they've purchased signs to put up so that that easement is not blocked. There's parking along the roadway side of it, and it wraps around. The goal is to fill in the green space, or the proposed green space area would be overflow parking if necessary. And then the volleyball courts would be in that northwest corner. So they would expand the parking closer to that northwest corner as well.
You mentioned outdoor Tiki Bar. Can you maybe want to have?
So their goal is so that people that are playing volleyball aren't dirtying up the banquet hall, because the bar that the volleyball players use is connected to the banquet hall on the second floor, you could say. They are planning on having a designated Tiki Bar out there that would serve beer, as well as have outhouses, porta potties, or some maybe more permanent fixture eventually for restrooms, so that people wouldn't be meandering throughout the whole premises. The volleyball people would be set off and stay over by where the volleyball would be.
So people hit a volleyball over a 6-foot fence all day long.
Well, they're not, the current fences are much higher than that. That's just their recommended fence height.
Mm-hmm.
We've already talked about it, and they were planning on having a privacy fence in addition to the high netting fence as well.
Okay. And is there, I don't see any kind of a site plan or conceptual drawings. Are they in here and I just missed them?
On that very last page.
Oh, okay, thank you. Oh,
So that was one of the reasons why I requested that when he kind of acknowledged how, one of the conditions would have to be that they provide us with an engineered scale
Okay.
site plan.
And we haven't wanted to invest an exorbitant amount of money if they can't afford to move the volleyball courts and still rent the hall at the same time. They need enough income between ensuring that the volleyball league continues, but also still renting it. And if you only get one of the two incomes, it's not the best investment to be moving them potentially.
So will this increase? It's not going to increase the rental space. It's not going to increase the volleyball courts, but it increases the parking.
It increases the parking, it just relocates those volleyball courts, and it should reduce any backup on the highway.
and the idea with the increased parking is that you might have a volleyball game going on and use of the event space simultaneously, and
Correct.
right now they're only having one or the other.
Correct, the conditional use doesn't allow for
Right.
both of them at the same
Okay.
time.
Is the parking lot just a gravel parking lot?
It is a gravel parking lot. And we do agree that we would pave ADA-approved parking spots for handicap.
Is the rental house rented currently?
It is, and we are aware of, Robin has been working with the renters to clean that property up. We are prepared to serve them a 7-day notice to quit, to clean up that property even better. So we would, Robin had been working with the county and the renters, and until last week, we weren't aware that there was, the renters had stopped kind of cleaning up what they were supposed to be cleaning up. But we are prepared to file and serve them with a 7-day notice to quit, and if they didn't clean up at that time, we would move to evict them.
Have they voiced any opinion about, obviously they know what they're living to,
Right.
next to now.
Right. They have never complained about it. They pay early. They don't have a backyard. Their backyard is the sand volleyball essentially. And they've never had any problems.
How long have they been there?
I think Scott and Robin would have to answer that question. I don't know that answer.
So when you talk about signage or the easement, tell me where, when I look at this new drawing, where that's going to go.
It'll be at the beginning of where the guardrail is, which would be closest to, Old Lincoln Highway. There's a post right at the beginning. You can see the dark outlining. There would be a sign there. And I'm not aware of where else, if they were gonna post it throughout. I know there's also signage abutting the bar that says parking as well.
Is there food service out of the main building?
There is food in the basement or the ground level entrance. They have a restaurant.
So I see in the original permit that it says to cease by 10:30.
Correct. And they don't
Is that
intend.
still planned?
Yes, and no, the volleyball leagues do not continue past that. They don't plan on having late night outdoor events or anything like that. We're not requesting that the outdoor activities be extended past that 10:30 curfew.
This isn't included, but just a side question. So does this property have any type of like bonfire spaces or anything like that that people are using? Okay.
Nope. The only outdoor activities that have been routinely happening are sand volleyball. And they don't have intent to be putting up bonfires or anything like that. They just want the green space and the volleyball to be able to be used at the same time as somebody's renting the banquet hall.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you.
This time, we'd ask anybody who would like to speak in favor to come forward.
I'm Robin Helm, and it's Helm, and my address is 5005 Providence Road. Okay. One thing, when Tyler was talking, I think at the beginning, he did say something about not having the volleyball players we were constantly cleaning up the bar area, and he didn't mean bar, it's the hall. So the volleyball players, they get their drinks from the bar that's in the hall, and they use the restrooms that are in the hall. So right now, we have volleyball on Friday nights. Those volleyball players are tracking in the sand and the dirt and everything, and they're making a mess. And then we're trying to flip the hall so then people can come in and have their parties and their wedding receptions and whatever on Saturdays. And we're just not able to, I would like to make the hall a lot nicer. But we can't do that right now with the volleyball players using that space also. And there's no way to not have them use that space, if that makes sense. The volleyball courts, regardless, can't stay where they are because of the hill. The retaining wall that's up now has collapsed again. We have done so many projects to try and fix from the hall or the hill coming down onto the volleyball court, and I give up. We can't do it. So that's the purpose of moving the volleyball courts. But when we move, by moving the volleyball courts, that top part of the parking, I don't know my directions, but so do you see like where I don't know if you can even see it, but there's a little white circle. That's actually a porta potty. You see where like the sand stops and then kind of jets out and goes again? So from where the sand stops the first time, straight out, all of that area right now that is volleyball court area will become parking. So actually on that top part of the parking lot, we're gonna be able to get 3 rows of cars instead of just the 2 that we're able to get now. So with that, I mean, right now, there's not enough parking to have something in the hall and have volleyball at the same time. But with the volleyball moved and the additional parking, and with it being rezoned and be able to use that green space if we needed to for overflow parking, there is enough parking to support having something in the hall and having volleyball at the same time. So, I don't know. And then, what questions did Tyler
The
have?
length of time of your leagues.
I'd like to start as early as possible, but Mother Nature usually doesn't let me. We usually start around the end of April, and then we go until the end of September, give or take. I have some volleyball players that would play year-round if I let them. But, you know, it's just kind of a weather thing. As long as the weather is nice, we'll get started as soon as we can, and we'll play as long as they want to.
And how long's the renter been in the house, in the property?
They've been there for a year, and they are, and that's the thing with that too. I had actually talked to Matt and asked him to kind of put some of his pressure on me, so then when I went to them, I had some sort of backup saying, this isn't just me being, you know, a mean landlord or whatever, like this is a problem, and this is why it's a problem, and you need to get it cleaned up. Trent from Matt's office has gone out there, I think twice, and the first time that he went, or 3 times, one time, you know, to talk to him and kind of give him direction, and then went back and checked with him. After the second time that he went, I called and talked to him, and he had said, you know, yeah, they're doing stuff, they're going in the right direction, you know, they're cooperating, and I thought things were fine. And then this last time that he went back, I guess, you know, as much work as he thought should have been done hasn't been done yet, or whatever the case may be. But I talked to her, I don't even know what today is. I talked to her Monday, I think. And, no, yesterday. I talked to her yesterday. Today's Wednesday. I talked to her Tuesday. And told her, you know, here's the situation. This is a problem. You guys were going in the right direction. I don't know, you know, why or what happened. My attorney wants me to give you a 7-day violation letter now. You have the weekend. Like, figure it out. Get it cleaned up. Get it taken care of. You have the weekend. They don't want to move. They don't have anywhere to go. You know, they kind of, I mean, they came to us from nowhere, and, you know, they've been, I think the renters that are there now, for them to be somewhere for a year is good for them. Like, they transplanted here from somewhere. But I mean, they want to do what they have to do to fix it up for it to be right. So, you know, I'm going to give them until Monday and see what they can get done.
What kind of stuff do they have to do?
They just have to clean up the yard. He's a scrapper.
Oh.
So that's what it is. It's scrap. And then I think they have 2 vehicles that I don't know what the situation is with one of them, but they need to be licensed or titled or whatever. And the one is then it's just in her name, and for some reason they need to put his name on it before they can title it. But you know, so it's a few cars, and then he scraps stuff. Well, he needs to get a different hobby. So.
It was one of those junk situations that, unfortunately, one of the drawbacks with our code is it does, once it fires off and gets to a certain point, it takes anywhere from, you know, the original 5-day letter goes out to them, and then it's a 30-day notice to get it cleaned up. Once that 30-day notice is there, and when you try to work with residents in this fashion, they have an attachment to every item that is out there. So you have to really push for them to, you know, get rid of everything, because everything has a value to them, and everything is this. And so as you work with them, and as long as you divide the property into sections, as long as they make progress in one section, you allow that to then carry into the next. When they stop making progress like that, that's when then we can issue a citation, and it goes up to the 3D courtroom and goes through that process. But we have found that it is sometimes a struggle in the courtroom to get some of those items addressed, and that it's better with pushing them the way that we do instead of crossing that final line.
I think it's, I mean, when I talked to her, yeah, I mean, she's fired up. Like, she was gonna have words with Chris and he was gonna work all weekend. So, you know, but I'm for sure, I mean, like Matt said, I mean, he looks at, you know, he scraps the stuff or, you know, and I think he, you know, does some repair and whatever. So like everything to him looks like a project. It looks like money, you know, so I don't know. But yeah, they're motivated to get it taken care of, and if they don't get it taken care of, then they're gonna have to go live somewhere else.
I think we're at our time limit.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. All right, good, sounds good, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to speak in favor?
Excuse me, I just heard about this last night, but, my name is Stacy Petty, last name is Petty. My address 6502 Biddy Street, Omaha, Nebraska. I'm a member of ABATE of District 2 of Iowa, also ABATE of District 6 of Nebraska. We're a motorcycle rights organization. Every year for the last 20-plus years in March, we have a party at, it's Winter Bash. It's trying to, you know, you get tired of being, and it's also a fundraiser. We've been having this for like over 20 years, so we've seen the Mile Away improve. Like 20 years ago, it was nothing compared to what these guys have improved on. It's just, they've done so much work on it, and anything that's asked of them to better it, they have bettered it. Any parking issues, when it comes to like numerous poker runs go through there, because they, and poker runs raise money, and they help with any kind of raising of money for, excuse me, any issues of the poker runs are, and those people say, well, look at all the money you're making. I was a bar owner 20-some years ago. It takes money to, the kind of poker runs they get in there, you have to get bathrooms, you have to get outside toilets, you have to get all kinds of amenities. You don't always come out making money. By the time you've paid your help, you paid your, plus they donate door prizes and stuff. All I'd like to say is these people deserve every chance to even better the place that they've continued to better. And it's a staple of the community for, I can't tell you, you guys would know how many years. I know I've only been going there like with the poker runs in ABATE 20-some years. I mean, we had ABATE of District 2, we were having our ABATE meetings there when we were like 50 people. We outgrew it, we had to go to a different, but we still come back for our March Madness or Winter Bash, in March. And I would just like to see that these guys get whatever they need to improve the community.
All right,
Thank you.
Anybody else speak in favor? Okay, if not, I would ask anyone who wants to speak and opposed to come forward.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is David Nielsen, Nielsen, of the 20568 Old Lincoln Highway, Council Bluffs, Iowa 51503. I am also serving as the authorized agents for my parents. Our family owns property that is to the west of a mile away. Kind of have to change this a little bit because the applicant's counsel said some things that actually helped me a little bit here. The request is to amend the conditional use for 2006-01 to permit outdoor entertainment and recreational use volleyball in conjunction with principal use of entertainment and recreation when an indoor hall bar is present. Resolution 2006-01 went into effect in 2006. So here's some outdoor entertainment. The first photo you have there, that's midget wrestling outside. I am sharing that picture. That event was March of 2014. As you can also see, the cars are parked on the easement area, close to the easement along that fence line. So I'm going to tell you, you could differ with me, but midget wrestling is not volleyball. This is a violation of the code. In the applicant's application, they state now with the property rezone, they can use the whole area for parking. But as you can see in that photo, they were already parking people anywhere they wanted to. It's a violation of that zoning at that time. There's a second picture. This picture is another example on how these conditional use codes are ignored. This is a wedding out there. No one does anything. No one follows those rules. If you look at, well, I can guarantee you, I've showed you visually with the one picture with the midget wrestling that they violated, and it's the current owners.
So these aren't time and date stamped.
No, that one's 2014 March.
How do we know that?
You have one of the flyers. And I will admit on the second one, that's just an example of the use of it. I can't give you a time and date on that. The third and final picture was taken roughly 2 weeks ago. Those are individuals from the bar, children, feeding our horses, unsupervised. Okay? Now we're to understand that they're going to be able to handle 300 people at this place when they have just a few patrons they can't supervise. And I want to know what happens when one of those horses bites somebody. What's going to happen when they feed one of those horses something that shouldn't be fed. Those are concerns we have. Also, I'll conclude, everyone that's going to talk in favor, or has talked in favor, doesn't live there. We live there. And 20 years ago, when this became a bar, we continually have to come up here to get our peace and quiet. We live out there, and we want to continue to have that. Thank you.
Thank you.
This will support that date, it's on, it's listed on there. Hello, my name is Jeannie Waters, we are a neighbor. We have the
Can you
easement,
spell your last name and address?
Waters, W-A-T-E-R-S, 20278 Old Lincoln Highway, Council Bluffs, 51503. And we purchased the property in 93, so we've been there a long time. Okay, I'll talk real fast. I'm gonna talk fast, but
Can I just comment? Your house is shown on this map, right? This is your house right here?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Just for your benefit.
thank you. I'm just here to oppose any further expansion of the conditional use permit. The owners do not comply now. And it doesn't fit the character of the neighborhood either to
Can you
bring
speak
in.
a little louder, please?
Sorry. And it doesn't fit with the current, character of the neighborhood, which I believe was a condition. That's agricultural and residential, $250,000 and up. Again, the owners are not currently compliant with their conditions, and it's a constant problem. I wanted to ask too, if the bar where is on the lower part, it used to be the old basement of the barn, and that faces directly east. And on top of that is the hall, and then that's ground level with volleyball in back, but that faces directly west. There's a small window that a bartender serves beer or alcohol out of, but that's the only vision you have to the back to see what's going on. And that is part of the problem, is I don't know if they know what's all going on, but a lot does go on. And there's no security required in the county for any kind of event. There's no ordinance against urination in public or outside, in the county, which I think is a problem too. It is a problem out there, and I don't think more porta potties is the issue, because right now there are porta potties directly next to the volleyball courts, and they're still going inside to urinate. So there's been instances recently that I'll talk about where we had the urination, and they just walked outside into it. So it's an issue. Today I received this from Chief Deputy Ambrose, and he said, Sheriff Danker and I did discuss the situation and viewed the pictures. The current outside volleyball courts do not allow for deputies to see what's going on while driving down Old Lincoln Highway. The proposed changes would not improve viewing from the highway. I do anticipate more patrons if changes are allowed. And I believe when you increase the number of people in an area and add in alcoholic beverages, the potential for law enforcement to be called will increase. And that is similar to what they said years ago.
Can we get a copy of that for the record, please?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to be kind of jumping around because kind of that's how it leads us. I do want to submit and have you take a look at these reports. On 5/13 of 2018, the Sheriff's Department, the Iowa State Patrol, and the Council Bluffs Police were called out it appeared to be a fight. There was a severe laceration to an individual, and we knew nothing about this. But the very next day, we woke up to a very damaged hot tub, and we had always talked about retaliation, and so you have the actual report from the Sheriff's Office, a photo of the damage to our hot tub and batting. The batting cage was also damaged, and then you have our call in, so you can see that the dates and how that lines up. Next, I am going to pass around this. This first picture isn't time dated because I actually didn't know how to do that until recently. But the last one is. The last picture was November 3rd. But this will just show, this was the summer of 2018, and people have parked all over down there for a long time. This is not new. Second one is our easement being blocked, same with the third. And then the fourth one again is someone parking on the easement very early morning, November 3rd. This is why with adding a total of 100, so there's a total of 190 parking spaces is what the owners is asking for, with bar service outdoor, which also results in more porta potties, which, not very attractive. But after the first meeting with the County Board of Supervisors a few months ago, the owners were basically warned to follow conditions and clean the whole area up.
Gina, can I interrupt you? Warned by whom? Who were they warned by?
Justin Schultz.
Okay.
County Board of Supervisor. within a few days. Here was the first complaint, a week or so later. So the first 4 weeks after that, there were 2.
Do you have other documents to submit, because you're coming up over your 5 minutes?
Oh, I didn't hear anything about 5 minutes. Sorry about that.
Yeah, when I read the initial statement.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm just gonna, I didn't hear either, but it seemed like 5 minutes. Wow. Okay, so I'm gonna talk really fast. So they talk about the last, they're talking about everything happening in the past. So here's a progression, last 8 months, the same beer bottles out. They go through this, that there. Same thing with the next one. They talk about cleaning up progression with the trash 4 days straight blowing onto the highway. Here's 3 days straight after they say they hired someone to take care of all this in their application. 4 days straight of that sign. Several days straight of the bottles in the driveway. Here, you don't have to look at these all now, but these are all after that hearing. These are bottles, beer cans, etc. in the easement and the drive. I want to tell you and then these pictures are from one day, March 17th, before the very first hearing, taken outside. Here's another violation of conditions, horseshoe thing going on out there. And I want to tell you quickly as I can to take a really good look at this one. This was an outdoor event, or not an outdoor event, an indoor event. But it was on July 20th. You'll see several pictures. The first one was at 9:43 in the morning. It wasn't 3 hours before the first beer cans were in the parking lot. On our easement all the way up by our home, which our home we've had attempted break-ins. We've had property damage this year several times. The attempted break-in was over $3,000 for the damage. But on this sheet, you'll see July 20th, July 21st, beer cans, bottles still there. July 21st through that. At this event, there was 3 people that urinated outside. The person that does their lawn witnessed 2 of them with me because I was doing my lawn. And then the last one, I put a sheriff's report in. And then I hired that lawn guy to tear out all this blocking because people, when they're going to walk out there and urinate, I want everybody to see them going down the highway, not just me. So I tore that out, and then we are going to put something up there, but if you want to see that. And I want to tell you about the same day that people were petting horses. I was outside working in my yard, my dog barked, and I looked up, and that's a person there walking down from where they were standing. So it's not a great situation, and I will give you this. This is a same thing, dating back from the previous renter. I want you to please look at these pictures, especially it's just a progression of how bad that's gotten. And if you go to page 8, the county was there to have them clean up October 17th. And then you'll see the next page is clean. It's all cleaned up there. And then you'll see a picture from a week or so ago where it's already getting back to where it was.
Okay, we're gonna have to.
That's good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure.
There's still a lot. I just have the big packets left.
My name is Terry Morrison with Earhart Group and Associates, Morrison, M-O-R-R-I-S-O-N, 142 Broadway, Suite 136. I was hired by Mr. Waters to look at the proposed layout of their project and analyze the existing or the proposed slope and embankment. I guess I don't have any things to hand out, but the elevation difference based on the GIS between the sand volleyball court and the Waters residence house is 36 vertical feet. If you look at the slope behind the volleyball court, it is basically a vertical face, which is not very stable. I guess from my perspective, it would be recommended for the owner to do a slope analysis because we feel that slope is not stable. And if there's more modifications or excavations done, that could destabilize all the way onto the water's property and cause extensive damage. Also, based on the conceptual site plan that I saw, they plan extending and excavating more to the west of the volleyball court, which would get into the slope. It appears it would need another 10 to 15 foot retaining wall along that area. So their concerns have to do with the stability of that slope and how that would affect their property, as well as some of the improvements that were done on the property have directed drainage and water runoff onto their access drive. And so that becomes a concern when it washes out their gravel and causes damage to their driveway. So it would be recommended, if there are any future improvements, that the drainage be handled in such a manner that it doesn't damage their driveway or other options. They also had me look at other options, possibilities to access their property, but due to elevation difference from the highway, and in discussing with the city Public Works Department, the property cannot be accessed directly off of the highway, also because of site distance issues, concerns. So the only way to get different access to their property would be to purchase additional property to the south and install a complete new driveway, which with a rough estimated cost is probably around $170,000 to $200,000 just for the driveway, and that doesn't include purchasing the property. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else opposed?
Jim Waters, W-A-T-E-R-S, 20278 Old Lincoln Highway, council bus. So I try to be quick. I try to make up for the time my wife went over a little bit. So anyway, back early spring, my wife mentioned Justin Schultz's name, that he gave a direction to the bar owners that, you know, their backyard is actually watered his front yard, and what they have out there, and here's a picture you can pass around. It needs to be cleaned up, and it needs to be cleaned up soon. And it's pretty much what he said. I'm sure it's on tape if you go back and look at it. And then he also mentioned that there's a fence falling down in my yard. That's their fence, and that was included. That should be cleaned up. And we're talking months ago. This is still an eyesore. So really, the reality of the whole thing out there is that we have a nuisance, and how much of a nuisance continues to get rewarded. The other thing I want to bring up is that the easement is not for anybody's use. I have the easement right here. You can pass this around. It says for the benefit of the waters. That's what it says. We maintain it. It's unlawful to actually deny me services for ambulance, fire service, sheriff deputies. We've even had life-death situation at my house. If my driveway was blocked, somebody's dying. So that's pretty serious. And to impede that is just, I mean, to think you can impede that is crazy. We have pictures where it's blocked, where it's impeded. I mean, where do you say enough's enough? So anyway, I can stop at that unless you have any questions.
Jim, who's responsible for maintenance of the road?
I am.
Is it- So you are solely?
I am. When I purchased it, that was what I agreed with the owner on, that I would maintain it.
I'll save you reading that, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It was just on that one page I had it marked there, so you didn't
Yeah,
have to read the
I
whole
saw that.
thing, so.
Current
Yeah.
address and address.
Yeah, I don't know,
It's
I know
not
you guys
shared
probably
use,
can't
though.
settle that, maybe we get in front of a judge to settle that, but there's gotta be consequences there, somewhere, where the more people that are out there, the more problems we have, and one of the big ones is that there's no control. I mean, on the back side of it, is that when people leave these big parties or whatever, they jump on my easement, take off, and then we almost have head-on collisions when we're coming home. We shouldn't have a lifestyle like that. So no controls, you can't see anything out there. I know when, the liquor license was removed from that for 30 days in the past or whatever, Sheriff Danker had said that we don't have enough deputies.
I'm going to object to relevance at this time.
Well, we don't have enough deputies to cover all that for all those big parties. That's what the deal was back then. So, I'm sorry, you guys got any questions?
No.
I think it's clear,
For the benefit of the board real quick, the point in which time you're talking about the liquor license was being removed was not at the point when Robin was the owner of the facility.
It was not,
Okay.
it was not, just, sorry,
So-
make that clear.
Thank you.
Dan Dukeman, 20493 Old Lincoln Highway. I live right across the road, a little ways north. I'm not gonna bore you with the horror stories that I shared last time I was here about what happens at the mile away when there are crowd sizes that exceed 2.5, 300, 400 people. But it is still my concern. And when we see amended condition uses here for approval, the first thing that comes to my mind is, okay, they play volleyball, they can have a Tiki Bar, and they can have parking in this newly zoned area. But, is there anything that limits the number of times they can play volleyball? Or is that every night of the week, no, all weekend? Is there anything that says they can't put 2 new courts over here in this northwest corner and leave these 2 here? Now they got 4 courts. They can have live bands. I know they probably aren't going to intentionally fire those bands up at full volume, 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, but if there's no restrictions, they can. One of those poker runs they had, the band started at 11:30 in the morning, and 2:33 in the afternoon, it was still going. And I'd heard the same song about 6 times, so I called over and asked him to turn that volume down or move those speakers heading south or west, because I was really tired of hearing the music. And the next thing I heard was the guy that was lead singer, I guess. He says, well, we gotta quit playing because that jerk across the road there's called and complained. And then you can only imagine what happens in the community when you got about 50, 60 drunk people upset with you. They don't know who you are, they just know where you live. And that's when all hell breaks loose. And that's why I'm concerned about the crowd size. Now, the kids that are running the bar or own the bar right now, they haven't had a problem with crowd size yet. But that's exactly what could happen if this thing is all of a sudden
Can I
wide
interrupt
open
you really
to
quick? I have a
anything.
quick question. So all of the incidents that you're talking about was their ownership or somebody else's ownership?
That was prior to, I just got through saying, they have not had a problem with the number of people.
Okay.
But my concern is that if we open this up, say, they can do all this, then there are, I guess, no restrictions. There were restrictions on the volleyball. And you couldn't have a band outside, but now it looks like they can. So, you know, if they're gonna have a band outside, let it run from God only knows what time, then, you know, the peaceful enjoyment of your property is just gone. Flat, plain, pure and simple. And I'm concerned about that. Oh, and I've lived there since 1980, so it's squatter rights, I got them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Yes.
I'm Tracy Lorenz, Lorenz, and I'm wife of Dan Dukeman. So my address is 20493 Old Lincoln Highway, and just down the highway, just as he said, a little ways. Just an overall perspective, I think you need to ask yourselves, would you like to have all of the things that can happen in this bar that are close by to you? Would that be okay? Because that is in our backyard, and we've had a lot of noise. There was noise Monday night, and my daughter was just leaving. She goes, "Really? Outdoor speakers? What's that for?" And it's just, you know, there are a lot of, when you think about it, for 190 people or 190 spaces, is that really suitable for that small area? To squeeze those people in, and then there's more people than that in the car, in the cars. So that's parking spaces. And then it goes right out onto the highway. And that creates a lot of traffic problems and that sort of thing going by. And it's really not a very suitable place to be, to have something like that, to squeeze all of that in there. And then I hear things like porta potties, tiki bars, and we'll get to the concrete when we get a chance, for handicapped and all of this, and none of it ever happens. And it's just an eyesore. But if they would really follow up on their promises, and there wouldn't be any noise, but from outdoor activities, I don't know how you're not gonna have that. It just echoes right into our yard. And we can have our windows shut and still hear the noise inside of the house. And I think that's an encroachment. I know it is. And it's not fair, it's not right that we have, you know, property like that situated. We can't move. We can't move our property so that we don't have that. There's no way to get away from it. So that's my biggest concern. And all of the things that they say we'll plan on doing, it sounds really nice, but there's never any follow through. It's not there. And this is something Jeannie wanted me to give, but this is, they were supposed to put a fence up in this picture. They were ordered when KMOCA was here, and they started it and they never finished it. Just like everything else. Yeah, we're gonna do that.
But that wasn't when they owned it, correct?
No, it wasn't.
It's still in place though, that, they did finish it, it just.
We need to be super clear going forward, current owners, past owners, because I understand that everybody's using the property and it affects you, but this is about them and their application. So let's just be clear
Okay,
about
so
that.
I'm talking from the standpoint of you put that many people into volleyball, it's gonna create noise. It's just gonna happen. I mean, that's just common sense. And the noise that we heard Monday night came from the outdoor speakers, and they turned that up. It goes right to our house. You know, and we don't even live in an apartment, you might as well, if somebody turns their music up like that.
How late was that?
That was around 10:30.
That it went off, or
It finally did go off.
at
I was
10:30?
about ready to call them to try and get it off.
Did it go off at
It
10:30?
went, it was probably an hour later.
Was it an outdoor activity that night?
No, nobody was out there. That's why it was so strange. And my daughter was just leaving about that time, or before that, you know, around 10:30. She goes, "Really? There's nobody out there." So I don't know if there's somebody's just lonely and they want to play something. It's Monday night. I don't know. But everything from that bar filters up to our property. We see increased traffic when there's activities going on. And, you know, I don't know how they're gonna control. With 190 cars, with that many patrons, how you're gonna control. And it just seems a little bit strange to have porta potties, to put those out there for these people. I mean, you know, it's just not appropriate. It's not a suitable place. And if you lived out there, you'd say the same thing. So, you know, it's not, you know, this not your backyard is just, it's ridiculous. We've been out there for how many years, and we really had a nice area, except for that eyesore. And you're right, I don't, I'm talking, these people, this has not been too bad, except for volleyball nights, since the original couples were there. But when you start expanding, and you start adding people, and you add alcohol, it's just gonna happen.
Okay, Tracy, we're gonna cut you off for time, but thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask, when did you take ownership of this?
2016.
No.
Yeah.
No, Clinton phase one.
Oh, you're, yeah,
Yeah, 11.
2011, I guess.
2011? Okay.
How many years have you had volleyball, outdoor volleyball there?
Volleyball's always been there.
Volleyball's been
Always as
allowed
in-
since 2006 is when it was started to be
Since
allowed.
they did this permit.
That's not true. And Ryan Rogers put it in.
The first conditional use on it was 2000.
And I can see that's when it was approved. Was it ever discontinued at any time?
There was an original permit that was granted, oh, I should say, so I think the original permit was granted 2005. That permit went for 1 year, that conditional use did, and then they came back in 2000 and 2006, the next permit, and there was no timeline, it's just an established use.
Continued use. Is that, city sewer and water?
No, septic and water.
It's
City
water.
City water?
Crescent
City water, but septic?
Yeah.
Is there anybody else opposed? Let's come up and speak. If not, I would ask.
If you want to do a closing statement.
Yes.
Do you want to do a closing statement?
Yeah. Well, no, I don't want to do closing statement. Can I address a couple of the things that were?
Come back up to the podium.
The issue that we keep hearing is the parking and the cars on the easement, which is not okay. We don't let people park there. If we see somebody parked out there, we tell them to move. That happens maybe twice a year. That is when there's a big benefit, the Burbridge thing, or, I don't even know. Sadly, it's always, it's benefits and it's always when somebody's passed. But it's a couple times a year, if that, then the parking's that ridiculous. But that was the whole point of doing the rezoning, which has happened, so then we can expand the parking and we can get those cars. We've had a couple of things where, there's cars parking on the highway, which is not okay. But in the time that we've been there, I can count on one hand the number of times that that's happened. But with the parking lot being bigger, with it being rezoned, that's gonna solve the parking situation. With volleyball, which, I don't think getting rid of volleyball is even on the table here, but, just to put it in perspective, at one time for volleyball, there's 72 players there. And that's if both teams that are playing, they're all there. And then the next one, so it'd be 4 teams, and then the 4 teams that just got done are still there, and the 4 teams that play after the ones that are currently playing are there. That's the most. And that's not 72 people all driving themselves. And that never happens. There's never a time that everybody that just got done and everybody that's playing and everybody that's coming is gonna be there. It's a flow situation. But yeah, and you had asked him, but I wrote down, that the band that was playing during the day wasn't us. The rezoning, the whole purpose of that was to solve the parking and to be able to move the volleyball courts, so then the volleyball players have nice courts to play on. Because them playing in this hard mud situation because of the hill isn't working anymore. The fence issue, I don't have the paperwork with me. But when we first bought the place, within months of being there, Rich, who's my dad, and Jeannie talked about this fence and the condition of the fence and what needed to happen. And I still have the paper at home of both of them. They signed it, and they had made an agreement to have the fence. She wanted to take it down, and that's what was going to happen with it. I'll get that to you. I don't remember what it says, but I do have it at home. And I just lost my train of thought because there was one other thing.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So there's a stack of
Mhm.
pictures about that thick.
Yeah.
And,
yes, I
you know,
remember.
the beer can, and I
Mhm.
realize the natural progression of a bar scene
Mhm.
is to have beer cans and stuff everywhere.
Mhm.
You know, it's not okay
Mhm. Right.
for the property owners around you. And kids walking down to feed animals is not okay. So what I would like to hear, and maybe it takes time and you bring that back, is your plan as a business to protect your patrons
Mhm.
and also your neighbors.
Mhm. Well, I mean, with like Scott and I are the ones that actually go out there and pick up. Jeannie has sent me text messages before of the litter that she's collected with, in the pile of litter, 2 things that could have even possibly came from us, because the rest of it is nothing that we even serve. You know, so a lot of the parking lot litter or the road litter or whatever you want to call it is actually, you know, people on their way to the bar that are throwing stuff, which, I mean, it's not okay. But, I mean, that's up and down North 8th Street too, you know, and I don't see the city, you know, making Third Base be responsible for all the litter up and down North 8th Street, you know. All the litter that's on Old Lincoln Highway is not from our customers. You know, and then I did want to say, when you know, Rich bought the bar and I started managing it, I had always managed a bar in town, dealt with, you know, in the city sort of stuff, and with the midget wrestling and the wedding receptions that happened outside, to be honest with you guys, I did not even know that there was a conditional use permit. I didn't know what was on it. I didn't know that there wasn't, you know, that there was limits on what we could do and when we could do it. Like, I had no clue until we started doing the rezoning stuff, and it was brought to my attention that there is, when you're in the county, there's conditional use, and there's certain activities and certain times, and but until then, I wasn't even aware what was going on. And we haven't done any of that stuff since. You know, and even at that, like before I knew, you know, the new trend now is like your weddings, to rent a place where you can have your ceremony and have your reception all at the same place instead of having your guest, you know, go somewhere else. So before I was aware of this, that green space, there was people that had their ceremonies out in the green space, and then they would come inside and have their reception. I wanted to be able to do that. I mean, it's nice. It's a nice area, and it's a nice situation for people to be able to have that activity, you know, so.
We're catching up on time.
I got a question.
Yeah,
Do you
for
have any private security during any of the things?
Mm-mm.
Sounds like you need some.
But see, I don't know. And even like the music on Monday, there's 2 speakers out front of the building in our patio area. They don't really turn up all that loud. And it was my 12-year-old that turned them up at 7 o'clock at night. And he turned them down. My husband worked Monday night. The bar was closed at 9:30. The jukebox was off, lights are off, place is locked up. So what music's playing at 10:30 either wasn't playing or it wasn't coming from us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. I guess at this time, we'd ask for the staff's recommendation.
And the recommendation that has gone through in the report, I also just wanted to kind of say a couple other things to the board. You know, we have, there's been a lot of work that has gone on through our office and the conditional uses that had been granted in the past, under other leadership of the department. The conditional use permits were granted, and there really was no follow-up on them. Once it was granted, unless a complaint came in, everything in our office had always really been complaint-driven. And the complaints would come in, they get followed up on, corrected, and that's what they go through with. Pam's been developing a better system to where the conditional use permits that get granted are set up on a yearly review, and so then that way we have an inspector go by, make sure that the conditions of the permit are being met. We put a lot of effort into going through the recommendation on this one here that you're about to hear, to where we felt like it was necessary that if a lot of the through complaints that we heard when it went through planning commission and board of supervisors, that there was ways that we could address them and the conditional use permit to make sure that there was things put in place to limit what the access was to that easement. That was a large problem for them. And if they didn't just have open access from that green space, you know, with the fence to be constructed, then the cars aren't gonna be just running up and down the easement to turn into that green space, because there's gonna be a fence there. You're gonna have to come in through the parking lot, having the parking lot better delineated out and things like that, and making sure that those steps are put in place before the uses even begin. And I think that's probably important for us, moving forward, that ensuring that the protective measures are actually put in place before they start up with the conditional uses. And then that way it can be inspected and added to their file that yes, they're in place, and then we move forward from there. But,
And so the process would be if neighbors or concerned people have a concern or want to file a complaint against all of these pictures, these incidents, there's a process in place to be able to do that.
correct.
Yes.
And for the Shady Lane Ranch, Charlie Nielsen, to the other side of him, I work a great deal with him through animal control. And he had reached out to me by telephone to talk to me about this. And that was his big concern, was the people up there, because he had lost 26 hay bales. And, you know, he would just refer to it as way back when. So, you know, the dope smokers jumped the fence, jumped up on his hay bales, and lit a bunch of them up on fire. And I mean, that's just the way Charlie talks. So his deal was, you know, if you're gonna put something out, if they're gonna push something back there, he wants to make sure that there's a fence, because he's like, if they can't, you know, he runs a business out there and he knows what it is. If they can't see it, they're not gonna go to it. So if they walk up to a solid wood fence or PVC fence, then, you know, they're just gonna turn around and stay contained into that area. But he thought if there was a fence there, he didn't necessarily care. He's like, he's pretty much, people do what they want, but, and I felt like that was important to hear from him, because he is a large concern. And, you know, I'd heard from him a number of times over the years about whether it was his hay bales or the horses and different things going on out there. So, it was one of the parts that we made sure that we did on this, was to actually reach out and find out from them what was going on. So, following staff recommendation from the planning department would be, based on the information provided, the recommendation by the planning department would be to approve the application subject to the following conditions being met and inspected before the conditional use begins. The first one would be for the submittal of a scaled engineered site plan showing the improvements and the parking area development with specifications to meet county code and the conditions below. Number 2 is a 6-foot site obscuring fence shall be installed along the west portion and north lines of the property. Said fence will be constructed in cedar and/or PVC material and maintained in good working order throughout the duration of the conditional use. The site obscuring fence shall be constructed and inspected prior to the proposed construction of outdoor entertainment and recreational uses. Number 3 is all the outdoor entertainment and recreational uses shall cease at 10:30 p.m. Number 4 is that the parking lot shall have a minimum of 89 parking stalls, 2 of which shall be paved ADA marked and inspected prior to use. Parking shall be restricted to only designated parking areas. Number 6 is the ingress and egress for this conditional use shall comply with section 503 of the International Fire Code. We've attached section 503 with that. I don't think you want me to read all that out to you. But,
Would an engineered site plan include some of that slope concern?
no, that is, they're gonna have to come in at some point in time for a grading permit. We adopted grading and excavation code in 2015, 16. They're much more stringent standards, and it will be, when they come in for their grading permit, it is gonna have to be an engineered grading permit that takes into consideration that slope at that. That's the point in time at which that slope would be addressed.
Okay.
And the engineers will set forth the bedding and matting of that, and however, you know, they'll give them a seating plan and everything that goes along with that portion of it. The following recommendation is based on the following findings of fact. Number one is the subject property is located in a Class C2 zoning district. The zoning ordinance adopted in conjunction with the land use plan stipulates that outdoor entertainment and recreation in conjunction with a principal use of an entertainment recreation when the indoor facility is present and permitted conditional use in a C2 zoning district. Number two, Old Lincoln Highway, which provides access to the property and its existing traffic patterns would not be negatively impacted by the conditional use. The existing use of the property is a bar and a hall with outdoor volleyball. The aforementioned conditions would minimize any potential adverse impact on the adjoining properties.
Okay, if there's no more discussion on the board, I would ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Been moved in second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Public hearing is closed. I guess if we'll ask for discussion on the topic, I guess. Come to some conclusion, I'd entertain a motion, I guess.
Well, I'd like to see them do something about the trash all being picked up. And, you know, it needs to be better than it's done, and I'd like them to get some security or something so that they
I
can.
don't think we can mandate security in the county.
Very bad. Maybe.
I guess on the, on the littering portion and things like that, we are out there, the inspectors are doing more trips. We've been much more responsive this time around. It came to kind of everybody's attention, really, when the planning commission meeting happens, that a lot of some of these, some of the complaint portions to the running of the establishment, the liquor license was the form that all these complaints should have been noted down on. And when we pulled all of the renewals for the last few years, when it went around, there was no complaints noted on the liquor license before it went to the board of supervisors for recommendation, which then went to the state ABD. And so that's what we've been concentrating on, is making sure that, when these liquor license renewals come around, and it wasn't just for their establishment, it happened at all the establishments around the county. It pointed out that de facto thing that nobody had been filling out that sheet, and so there is more attention being paid to that, which would, when you talk about, you need to be out there picking up your place, or, we're not gonna renew your liquor license.
A lot of people may be bringing it in and then, staying in the car, whatever, drinking.
You do get those customers that come in and clean out your car in your parking lot.
What can we do about the access to the animals, the horses is there anything that we could fence the area that they have?
So that whole side of the property line and then down,
Inside the access road, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it would block off all the patrons' access to even get near those horses, and it really should, and it's gonna block off the, from the visual effect of the waters when they come driving around. They shouldn't have to look at everybody, out there doing it, playing volleyball or.
When the 10:30 cutoff, so that's for any outdoor activities, bands, volleyball, anything, okay.
Actually, bands aren't even
Are
allowed
they-
on the conditional use permit they have, correct? The
Correct.
only outdoor activity allowed right now is volleyball.
Is volleyball.
And it will stay that way?
No.
No.
The time stays that way. So whatever you're gonna do out there, you can have your outdoor activity out there, but it's gotta shut down at 10:30.
Okay.
And we kind of based that a lot. I mean, it was in their permit that's what time volleyball needed to stop at. But when you look at, venues like West Fair and, what they're doing out there with their large scale concerts and stuff, 10:30 is just the best time to shut it down. And
20 nights a week is volleyball,
there was not a limit on it.
so they could have it every night.
Mm-hmm. For the original conditional use permit that went through, they had a limit on it. On the second conditional use permit that went through, they dropped that.
Can I ask how many?
Right now I have it on 2 nights.
2 nights?
Can I ask you something?
Not right now, unfortunately.
These are usually we have inspected after a certain period of time.
It's gonna be inspected annually. And then
Annually it will be though.
annually, it will be inspected, and then, of course, there's complaint driven that it will be inspected as well.
So the major change here, if this were approved, would be the number of people that could be at the bar at one time, as opposed to right now, those two indoor and outdoor activities have to happen at separate times. Correct? I have that
Correct.
right?
So there's the two major changes. That's the two, real changes to the conditional use permit is that they can now rent the hall and do their volleyball outside. And then, the types of activities that they're gonna be able to have. So they were, originally restricted to volleyball, which, by the pictures, there was some events out there that happened throughout whichever period of time happened. But now, and it goes along with some code changes that we had anyway, that it's just we just label them as outdoor recreation activities or entertainment.
Okay.
If there's no more discussion, I guess I would entertain a motion on this conditional use permit.
I make a motion to approve the permit condition to all of the staff requirements.
Do you want to add anything more? Like trash pickup or any of that kind of stuff?
I think it'll be enforced through the county's processes. New processes.
I would second it.
I have a motion and a second. It's been moved and seconded. Let's go for roll call vote.
Jensen,
No.
Pierce,
No.
Herder,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Jenner.
Yes.
Okay.
So I assume the application has been approved then?
Yes.
Okay. Guess is there any other business, Matt?
Well, the last piece of business that we do have some other business, and that is that Lisa Fox is going to be stepping away from the zoning board of adjustment. I did find a replacement member to fill her role, and we do thank her for her time that she served on this board.
No.
Is never it's, everybody up here knows it's not an easy role to fill, but, for a citizen to take their time and do those efforts for us, it is really appreciated from the board of supervisors on down.
We miss you.
Yeah, we miss you guys too.
Do we get to know who the replacement is or not yet?
Well, I don't officially have an application, so I was,
Which means they haven't approved it.
yeah, it was a handshake. I'm gonna submit an application for it. I really wanna be able to serve on a board, and, as soon as I get that, then we do have a December meeting, so I'm sure that they'll hopefully have that all taken care of by then.
Okay, there's no other business. I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
To move in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.